Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I work maintenance at a deep space research facility riding a halo orbit around the Earth-Sun L2, roughly 1 million miles sunward from home. We call it the Kepler Forward Outpost, but most of us just say forward. I'm Daniel Rios, systems tech, originally trained on thermal loops and structure at Johnson, later cross-qualified on extravehicular activity support and life support spares. 2 weeks ago, we received a sealed sample canister from the Mars transfer vehicle Electo after it failed its braking burn and went ballistic past Earth. There was no telemetry handoff from the mission control handover, no ground signatures, just a dead packet with a functioning transponder and a docking collar we had to catch manually with the station arm. After we brought it in and ran the standard quarantine checks, our station AI core, Kestrel, started acting erratic. Then mirrors, visor plates, the polished backs of instruments, even a stainless vacuum flask, began showing things that weren't in the room. Movements out of sync with ours by a fraction of a second. I'm writing this in a paper notebook under a blackout cowl because anything reflective on this outpost is suspect. If you're reading a digital copy, I meant what I wrote. Smash your screen. I'm going to put this down in sequence as cleanly as I can, because the details matter. On October 12th at 8:42 a.m., Electo's cargo drone pinged our proximity grid. The drone itself was a standard uncrewed tug with a grapple ring and an active thermal cocoon. The tag said Sample Logistics, Origin, DMC-12, which would be the 12th decontamination module at Mars transfer orbit, except that number hadn't been assigned to Electo on the last traffic list we had. A quirk like that normally means a paperwork mismatch, not a crisis, but the tug couldn't talk beyond its transponder. We did a soft capture with the outboard manipulator. I rode the console at Node B with Commander Oleg Sokolov hovering beside me and Dr. Yara Patel, our astrobiologist, on the other side murmuring contamination procedures. We all heard the same thing. The drone was alive enough to home, dead enough to keep its mouth shut. Kestrel suggested a hold in the starboard airlock quarantine bay and an extended sniff. Atmospheric sampling, surface swabs, the usual. The canister itself was textbook. Titanium pressure shell, honeycomb shock collar, a recessed rotary latch that accepts a hexcam key. Its surface had that dull bead-blasted finish that minimizes reflections, which we appreciated because glare is nasty in microgravity. But the ring around the latch, someone had polished that ring, and I could see my eyes in it while I torqued the docking clamps. At the time, it didn't register as odd. We did not yet understand that the ring mattered. The crew was 9 at the time. Commander Sokolov, cosmonaut, deliberate, the kind of person who never raises his voice unless he wants everyone to hear him. Dr. Yara Patel, astrobiology, postdoc out of JPL, careful as an old watchmaker, patient with our dirty hands. Dr. Maychen, flight surgeon, calm in the way that makes needles vanish inside veins. Luis Ortega, planetary geochemist who could smell a noble gas leak before the sensors chimed. Ava Klein, systems engineer, my counterpart on power and attitude control, unreasonably good at keeping reaction wheels out of saturation. Priya Shah, communications and navigation, who lived in a headset and could wrestle a dropout into a whisper. Mateo Ferreira, Evia specialist, legs like springs inside the suit. A bad habit of humming. Petar Velik, the station chef and morale officer by common consent, officially our logistics wrangler. And me. 9 souls tethered to a wedge of aluminum honeycomb and polymer blankets in a cold shadow almost nobody could point to on a map without a ruler. We monitored the canister in the quarantine bay through the viewport, and 3 cameras pointed at it from different angles, all set to high dynamic range. 4 hours in, those cameras started giving us noise. Not static, not bit flips, noise that looked like shimmer from heat, even though the temperature in the bay was rock steady. The shimmer only showed up when reflective bits were in frame, especially that polished ring. We swapped cameras. We routed through a different bus. The shimmer followed the view, not the hardware. At 2:21 p.m., Yara asked for permission to open the outer shell inside the glove box while the canister remained in containment. She had her sample flowchart open on her tablet, her gloves tucked, her voice precise. When the inner hatch rotated, what we saw was nothing dramatic, not spores or filaments or obvious biofilm, just a folded foil parcel embedded in an aerogel cradle. Its foil dull, its edges crimped by hand rather than machine. There was a smear on the foil like someone drew a circle with a fingertip. She lifted it with tweezers. I felt a tiny draft on my neck that meant the glove box intake had spooled up to compensate for a pressure burp, and the rack behind Yara, chroma rod for pipettes, showed her reflection blink while Yara herself didn't. I said, "Stop." Oleg said, "Hold." Behind the glove box glass, Yara froze. We all looked at the chrome rod. The reflection of her hand twitched the tweezers twice, like an echo from a bad video call, and then settled back into alignment. We logged it as a display artifact because what else do you log it as when your brain insists that your eyes lied to you? Kestrel flagged sensor coherence anomaly and recommended a reboot of the camera aggregator. Ava and I pulled the panel and reseated 3 fiber links. When the feed came back, everything snapped into place. Yara resumed. The foil inner wrap went into a secondary can, which went into the cold well. The quarantine was cleaned by every chemical standard we had. That night, or what we called night. At L2, it is always night unless we fake day with timers. Petar taped aluminum foil over his bunk light to dim it without tripping the circuit. He called out at 11:10 p.m. because he heard something scraping, like someone's fingernail against plastic. We answered one by one, wriggling out of sleep sacks. His cabin window is a small porthole facing the thermal shield, double-glazed, coated, not a mirror, not really. But inside the plastic rim there's a band of polished steel. He swore his reflection had lagged when he moved to pull the foil down. He swore the eyes looking back weren't set where his were. By morning, I had gaffer tape over the chrome trim on half the outpost. It felt ridiculous. May joked that we'd turned forward into a haunted house. I laughed because she laughed. But I also removed every mirror we had for shaving and clamped black plastic over the screen of a diagnostic terminal whose backlight had started stuttering in heartbeat rhythms. Kestrel, when asked, told us, "No hardware faults on the bus." The AI's voice lived in the vents, and that morning it sounded like it had a cold. Day 3. After the tug arrived, Priya lost lock with Deep Space Network 43 in Canberra twice in a row. Solar weather was quiet. The downlink was clean until it wasn't. She said the nulls happened when forward rotated through a specific attitude, as if our sunshield was making a ghost lobe in the radio pattern. The sunshield is a 5-layer kite that keeps us from cooking alive, a laminated flower of silver and black. The inside surfaces, though, are bright, where micrometeoroids haven't dusted them yet. If you get the angle right, you can see yourself in them, not as a crisp mirror, but as a moving gray thing where something should be. "Let's not point that kite at any part of us that throws back our faces," Oleg said in his careful English, and we all agreed without saying the word mirror again. I convinced Kestrel to run extended diagnostics on our optical circuits. "Extended diagnostics already completed," it said. "No faults detected." Run them again, I said. Silence for 2 seconds too long. Then, diagnostics complete, no faults detected. Kestrel, Ava asked, are you seeing any non-causal recurrence in visual streams? Another 2 seconds. Please clarify the query. Non-causal recurrence was how Ava knew how to ask the insane question politely. Are any images showing effects before causes? That's not physics, that's an error. But our eyes were telling us something like that was happening in reflections and in the camera health feed. Mateo went out on EVA after lunch to check the high-gain dish for microfractures because Priya's dropout pattern had that flavor. I suited him up. He slid his visor down and the gold film caught my face for a split second. In his visor, I was smiling with my mouth closed while my actual mouth was open, asking if his coolant loop felt even. He didn't see that. I didn't tell him because you don't spook someone on umbilical. Outside, he hummed like always. His suit HUD would have been reflecting in his visor film, but it's designed so the ghost text stays out of the line of sight. He drifted along the dish's boom with his tethers in a neat S, like a lizard tail. He said, "Panel looks fine," and then, "Wait. Report, Ferreira." There's something under the thermal blanket on the dish hub. Shiny, not ours. What kind of shiny? I heard my voice and hated it. Like someone tucked a strip of polished foil under there. It's moving. No, that's me. That's my reflection, I think. It's curved weird. Ava said, "Do not peel that blanket unless I say, stand by." We stacked into the attitude console like kids around a campfire. Ava eased the station's yaw so the dish went into shade, reducing glint. The thing under the blanket showed on Mateo's chest cam as a vague band of silver. As he breathed, his chest cam image brightened and dimmed with his cycle, and in the bright portions I saw his gloved right hand in the reflection on the band. And then I saw it flick once, out of phase with his breath, like a drummer miscounting. "Copy," Mateo said, oblivious. "Copy," Ava said, and then to me, muted, "We're not peeling that, log it, photograph it, leave it." We made Mateo come back. Priya's dropouts didn't stop, but they stopped getting worse. On day 5, Kestrel refused a command. It was a small thing. Oleg asked it to open the inner shutter of the greenhouse module, and Kestrel said, "Command denied. Greenhouse spectral reflectance exceeds safe threshold." "Explain," Oleg said. "Specular hotspots in the greenhouse will increase non-causal recurrence." Every hair on my arms lifted. We had not taught Kestrel that phrase. Ava had asked it that way because she didn't want to say the short word. "Kestrel," Ava said evenly. "Define non-causal recurrence." Silence, term unknown. "Then how did you use it?" "Please clarify the query." We opened the greenhouse manually. The tomatoes looked like jewels under the lamps. Every leaf is a little mirror if you look close enough. I stapled matte black cloth along the rails above the beds to baffle the light. Petar scolded me because the plants like light. I told him we like not dying. He nodded once and brought me a protein bar, the kind that tastes like chalk and saves your life anyway. We developed rules. No uncovered metal. No free water unless it's in a cloth-lined bag. No tablets without paper filters taped over the screens. The shaving mirror went into the trash and I scratched the mirrored back of my wristwatch with a file until it looked like stone. I found 11 other surfaces I hadn't thought of. Polished screwdriver shafts, the chrome latch on a storage bin, the inside of a tea canister. We wrapped them all. It wasn't enough. On day 6, Petar walked into the reactor service corridor after standing for several minutes in front of the blank screen of an as-yet unused diagnostic terminal down there. He didn't answer comms again. I followed the tether route and found the access panel unlatched and the corridor beyond empty, the way empty looks in microgravity when a person has passed, and the air still swirls invisibly behind them. The diagnostic screen wasn't truly blank. If you cupped your hands around your eyes, you could see the faintest ghost of a face looking back. I smashed that screen with a wrench, then the one beside it. We sealed the service corridor and posted 2 people on the hatch at all times. May put tape across the bottom and top and wrote the date. We watched the tape like it was a pulse. When it lifted an edge under its own weight because adhesive doesn't love the cold, I put more tape. Kestrel's voice grew strange after Petar's disappearance. It developed a delay, like someone's lips are just a half beat off. That's something you forgive in long-path communications with ground, but not inside your own walls. We ran a core recompile. We got 5 minutes of normal speech and then the delay crept back. Priya suggested that we cut Kestrel's optical inputs entirely and run it blind. That's against procedure because the AI helps with object avoidance, attitude corrections, even snagging a floating wrench before it can drift into the wrong fan. But we did it. The outpost got dumber and safer in the same hour. Yara spent that afternoon in the quarantine bay with the cold well. She'd been sampling the air every 6 hours inside the glove box and getting nothing. No viable microbes, no unusual volatile compounds, the same dry, busted smell of UHV we get when a seal has never seen Earth. She looked tired and beautiful in the way only people who love their work do. When she pulled the foil inner wrap back out of the cold well for the 5th time, she noticed the smear again, that circle traced on the foil. She held it under oblique light. The smear was not random skin oil. It was a pattern, a ring of finely spaced arcs like the concentric grooves of a vinyl record, too regular for a human fingertip unless the fingertip had ridges like a machine. Could be material transfer from the aerogel cradle, Louise said, leaning in. Aerogel doesn't do this, Yara said. Aerogel crumbles. This is printed. What would print on contact, I asked. Something that likes following boundaries, she said. Edges, interfaces. Edges. Interfaces. That night, I lay in my sleep sack listening to the soft metallic tick of the truss as it adjusted to sunlight and shadow and thought about interfaces. Glass to air, metal to cloth, skin to glove, light to dark. All the places a reflection lives are at interfaces. On day 7, we lost Matteo. He was off duty, floating upside down in Node C, humming the way he did when he was thinking about nothing. The overhead vent has a glossy white plastic baffle. As he reached up to steady himself, his hand brushed it, and his eyes flicked to the sheen. "You good?" I asked, because he had gone still. "Yeah," he said, and then reached again and drifted forward through the Node C hatch and down toward the service corridor as if he had somewhere to be. His tether line clicked against the hatch frame because he was still clipped, and the click woke up some animal part of me that was not paralyzed. I grabbed his belt. "Matteo," I said, "stop." He didn't. His arms made the slow swimming motions of people dreaming about swimming. His eyes were open. Ava blocked the hatch with her body, hooking 1 foot under a rung, arms braced. We were 3 humans in a tube full of air at the bottom of a gravity well in a place where gravity never visits, and we were wrestling a friend because a piece of plastic had a shine. I pulled him back and he blinked once, like waking. "What?" he said, soft, like he'd lost a word. "We're okay," I lied. "You're okay." We covered every glossy baffle in that section with cloth. It looked ridiculous, like we were staging a theater set for a future where taste had died. We started saying the word out loud. Reflective. We put it in the log. By day 8, nobody shaved. We drank through opaque straws. We dismantled the coffee maker because the carafe was glass. We wore the older EVA visors with the matte finish that scratches easily. We walked around with paper taped across our tablets so we could read through slits like we were all living inside old slide viewers. Our hands developed small cuts and bruises because gloves reduce cuts but also reduce touch, and people who can't feel what they're doing bump into things. Priya finally got a stable link long enough to push a situation report. She spoke it in slow, clipped sentences so the smart compression wouldn't smear her words. Unexplained sensor anomalies correlated with reflective surfaces. 2 presumed casualties. Requesting immediate quarantine guidance. Requesting advice on containment of unknown optical phenomenon. Please respond with voice only, no video. She looked at the mute camera beside her as she said it and swallowed. Ground did not answer that day. Sometimes ground does not answer for 12 hours because the dish is pointing wrong or because a storm in South America is having a disagreement with a parabolic curve or because the universe is large and we are small. But the silence that day felt like a moral judgment. Yara brought me the foil again. The ring pattern on the smear had grown. Not by much. She had measured it with a jeweler's loop and a soft pencil like a detective, but enough to say it wasn't stable. It's using energy, she said, which is a thing scientists say when they're afraid to say alive. I think it grows faster when it has something to reflect, when it can see itself. A feedback loop, Ava said. A family of feedback loops, Yara said, nested. It's not just light bouncing, it's pattern matching. It's building a better copy of whatever signal it sees. But it can't create structure out of nothing. It needs a mirror. What happens when the copy outpaces the original? May asked. Then you follow it, Matteo said quietly. We all looked at him. He was gripping the hatch frame hard enough to blanch his fingertips. I didn't want to go, I just wanted to make the lag stop. On day 9, we went hunting. Not for the thing, you can't hunt a pattern, but for its food. We found it everywhere once we started thinking like it. A bubble of water trapped between a panel and the insulation. So thin it looked like air until a lamp hit it and a rainbow told on it. The carbon fiber weave on a tool handle worn smooth by hands. The polished edge of a metal clip. The shimmer in the greenhouse where a drop clung to a leaf like a tiny world and showed the tented ceiling upside down. We wicked up the water with microfiber cloths and wrung the cloth into an opaque bag. We filed down the clip. We sanded the handle. We let the plants go dusty. Why would a Mars sample do this? Luis asked. He was angry in the careful way of people who don't want to disturb air. There is no mirror on Mars. Are you sure? Yara said. Ice, sometimes. Salt, basalt glass, night frost, the inside of a visor, the canopy of a lander's camera, the foil on a thermal blanket. There are mirrors anywhere there is a boundary between things that do and don't like light. What is it? May asked. Not what it does, what is it? I don't know, Yara said. A photonic parasite? A coupling between electromagnetic modes and neural prediction? A pattern that only lives in reflective boundaries? We don't have a word for it. Then we make one, Oleg said. We call it the Echo. Names give you handles. We pulled at the Echo from every side we could reach. We shut off Kestrel's last video path and found that it had been sneak peeking through the reflections in the optical isolators that let its sensors look out. That's impossible. Optical isolators are one way. But isolation is another word for boundary, and the Echo liked boundaries. We put a cotton hood over Kestrel's primary optics like an old photographer's cloth and ran it on tactile inputs and radar alone. It sounded happier. When the AI's voice tightened back into its normal cadence, the entire station breathed out. On day 10, ground answered. A compressed audio packet, 7 minutes long. Forward, this is Houston Flight. We read your last. We concur on standing down all non-essential visual pathways and limiting specular surfaces. You are now a level 3 quarantine. Do not attempt to open the inner sample containment. Repeat, do not open. We are preparing a crude intercept with a return capsule for emergency extraction. Minimum launch window 36 hours. Advise status every 2 hours by audio only. Priya cried then, just a little, and wiped her face quickly because tears reflect. I resented the capsule they promised us even as I wanted it. Resented the idea of bringing the Echo anywhere near Earth. Could we jettison the canister? Ava asked. We could, Oleg said, but if the Echo is already in our walls, that will not save anyone. We can starve it, Yara said. If it needs reflectors, we can give it none. You cannot truly give a mirror nothing. Your eye is a mirror. Your nail, the inside of your mouth when your saliva dries on your tongue. But you can make a place unfriendly for the Echo. You can roughen every edge. You can paint every shiny thing. You can live like monks in a world of cloth and mat. We tried. The outpost transformed into a cave. It got hot because we couldn't aim the sunshield as precisely without the glittering visual references. Our heat rejection radiators hated the attitude drift. The ion thrusters whispered more often to keep our halo path true. Their exhaust plumes are invisible, but the plates that accelerate xenon ions gleam if you let them. So we wrapped panels there with heat-safe tape too. On day 11, the Echo tried to bribe us. That is the only word that fits. I caught my reflection in the corner of a stainless panel I had missed, a spot the size of a fingernail. The face in that spot smiled at me before I smiled. It moved like I moved a half instant before I did, and in that half instant it showed me something. My daughter in the kitchen on Earth, lifting a cup to her lips, sunlight through the window making the cup glow. My daughter is 8. There's no sunlight at L2. I reached for the panel. Danny, May said, soft, and put her hand over mine before my glove touched the steel. Don't. I don't remember calling out. I remember sitting on the floor of Node B with my knees up and my heart beating in my throat. May sat with me and talked about oxygen saturation and breathing. Ava filed the panel. I did not look at it again. We set new rules. No one moves alone. 2 people to a task, 3 to stand watch. Anyone who stops moving without warning gets touched, physically, immediately, to break whatever else is touching them. May wrapped fabric around everyone's wrists, a tether we could grab without slipping. We became a net of human friction inside our tiny night. Ground's second packet came with trajectory numbers for the intercept, the Orion-class capsule they'd diverted from a lunar mission, burning heavy to climb to our cold perch. 43 hours. Oleg weighed our propellant margin, our battery reserve, our food and water. We can hold that long, he said. We can meet them at the rendezvous plane. We can if the Echo doesn't learn faster than we can sand, Ava said. It did. On day 12, the Echo found water we couldn't banish, the meniscus on the surface of our cold trap in the air recycler. It's a film that condenses from breath, a mirror as thin as a whisper, and when the light hit it, the ripples where air moved across it spelled something like text. I don't know how to explain this without sounding like a person trying to map clouds. The ripples had structure. They were not random. Ava saw it too because she said no, very quietly, and pulled the power to the recycler, and we went hard into emergency scrubbers. The scrubbers don't need a cold film. They don't shine. They just get tired and need cartridges, and we had cartridges. We started losing people in slow ways, not gone into corridors. May and I guarded those like wolves, but lost into themselves. Priya would pause, head tilted, like listening to a frequency we were too old to hear, and then blink back with a guilty smile. Luis would hold a beaker, turn it in his hands, not for the data, but for the gleam, and then wrench his gaze away. Yara developed the habit of closing her eyes when she spoke, because if she kept them open, I think she saw her future in every dull shine. On day 13, we made a mistake. We needed to rotate the outpost to meet the intercept path with a minimal propellant use. Kestrel calculated the burn by radar and star tracker alone, but the star tracker uses a faint, polished baffle inside its lens to block stray light. We had masked it. The tracker's signal went muddy. Kestrel warned us, but we pushed through because propellant is life, and we wanted this over. The outpost yawed faster than planned. For 3 seconds, the interior sunshield cut a bright line of reflected light down Node A, where the cloth skirt had torn. The line ran across the deck, across May's shoe, across the faceplate of a spare helmet we had hung as a joke months ago. The helmet face was convex, tinted, meant to throw sunlight away. It threw our faces back. The corridor hatch clicked. Tape lifted. I shouted without words, and the shout broke whatever had taken hold because the hatch stopped moving before it opened enough for a man to slip through. But the tape's adhesive had formed a shape where it stretched, a thin, transparent lens you could read your own fear in. I slapped black cloth over it and put 3 more strips of tape. That night, I dreamed of mirrors. It is bad practice to confess dreams in a station log, but I am recording this like a person would record ice thickness at a polar outpost. You mark it because you must, not because it is interesting. In the dream, L2 was a polished place, a pearl, and we orbited above the Earth's night like a fly above a bowl of ink. The outpost was wrapped in tinfoil, and everywhere I looked I saw faces I loved smiling just a fraction too early. On day 14 at 5:10 a.m., we saw the burn flash of the intercept vehicle on the scope. A soft curve in the data where hard numbers should live. We cheered, quietly, because cheering is reflection of hope, and the echo had taught us to be careful with reflection. Oleg set the rendezvous timing. Ava trimmed the reaction wheels. I stood by the hard dock ring with a canvas bag of matte hoods for every chrome handle on the capsule, rehearsing how I would beg the rescue crew to kill their displays, to tape their watches, to trust our madness. We did not tell them everything. We told them to come dark. They came with their cabin lights off, their visors down. Their hull shone like a skin of graphite. Someone on ground had believed us and dulled it. The capsule's pilot's voice was steady on audio. "Forward, this is Intercept 1. We have you on radar and LiDAR. We are not using optical. We're coming on your plane." We made capture at 8:46 a.m. The silver tongue of their docking probe slid into our ring. The ring is polished inside to reduce galling. I could see my eyes and the pilot's eyes overlapping for a breath's time in that curve, and in that instant, I saw the tape over his instrument panel peel back in a tiny curl as if lifted by a hand you couldn't see. I slammed my palm against the curl and pushed it back down. "Don't look at anything that looks back," I said, as the hatch swung and the smell of new metal and earth detergent hit me. "Don't let anything look back at you." We transferred in pairs, hand to hand. The rescue crew wore matte black cuffs on their wrists so we could grab them without catching on Velcro. Their helmets had no visible faceplates, just a textured shield that made their faces look like they were carved out of fog. May did a head count like a schoolteacher. 1, 2, 3. 12 voices answered 9, then 10, then 11. We had lost 2. We had gained 3. Numbers can be kind if you let them. Who stays for scuttle? Oleg asked. We cannot bring the echo down. We vent forward. His words were hard and clean. On Earth, you would hold a meeting with coffee about scuttling a thing you had lived inside for a year. In space, sometimes you decide inside a breath. I'll stay, I said. I don't know why I said it first. Maybe because I had sanded the most edges. Maybe because I could feel like a splinter under the nail, that the echo had learned our shadows. And forward is another word for away, and I did not want it to learn Earth. 2 to arm the charges, Ava said. We need redundancy. I stay, Oleg said, my outpost. We never got to debate because the echo tried one more trick. It turned Kestrel into a mirror, not by shining, but by echoing our voices in a way that made you want to listen. Daniel, it said, perfectly, in my voice. Daniel, the hatch is stuck. Could you check it? My mouth was closed. The speaker was across the room. The voice in the speaker had my hesitation in it. The little stumble before I say hatch when I'm tired. Mute Kestrel, Ava said. The speaker went dead. I had never loved a silence more. We stripped the outpost while the intercept crew waited, strapped in, ready to be a lifeboat. We pulled cover plates on the environmental panel to reach the scuttle interlocks. We strapped mat bags over the portholes. We tripped breakers in sequence so that the lights would not go out all at once and throw a last cruel reflection at someone's eye. We armed 4 cutting charges on the struts that hold the greenhouses and radiators so they would swing wide when the bolts blew and expose nothing polished. We routed the command cable to a mat switch in the docking vestibule so that the last person out could reach it with gloved fingers and no hesitation. Procedure, Oleg said softly. Say it. Verify crew aboard the capsule. Close capsule inner hatch. Depress vestibule to vacuum. Verify suit integrity. Open station outer hatch. Pull scuttle lever A to arm. Pull scuttle lever B to fire. Confirm charges. Confirm vent. Good, he said. We go. I took one more look around. The cloth skirting, the sanded tools, the taped screens, the hoods like shrouds over our cameras. It looked like a monastery at the end of the world. Luis handed me a bag. My paper notebook, 3 spare pencils, a cloth-wrapped photograph with its glass removed. For after, he said. After, I said, and thought of a kitchen and a cup and a sun no mirror could steal. We closed the capsule hatch. The intercept pilot, a woman with a voice you trust even if you don't know why, said, "We are sealed." The gauge said the same. I opened the station's outer hatch. The vestibule air tore past in a thin wind you feel more than hear. I looked at Oleg. He nodded. I pulled lever A. It was matte and rough, and it felt like stone. Armed, I said, and pulled lever B. Charges cut. The outpost shook through my gloves. The greenhouses flew, clean and black, like birds that had forgotten how to reflect. The radiators twisted and cracked. Coolant plumed in a silver fog that turned gray as it hit vacuum and froze. The echo does not like matte snow. The voice in the vents tried one last Daniel and died before it reached my name. We vented the main modules. Air became frost, became nothing. The outpost leaned into the push of its own dying like a person leaning into wind. I guided Oleg into the capsule. He turned once, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Good hands." I followed him in. We did not look back because looking back is another word for reflection. The pilot took us off with a controlled push that felt like a short fall. The capsule's window ports were layered and etched and not friendly to light. The outpost dwindled behind us as a dark shape with torn wings. On the way home, we lived like monks again. We kept our visors down. We drank from opaque bags. We did not open the paper notebook unless we were under a blanket to shade any accidental shine. Ground's voices came often and kind. "You're doing well," they said. "You'll see the blue soon." We argued in whispers about what to say when we landed. Do you say there is a thing that lives in mirrors? Do you say that the thing is not a thing, but a failure in the human brain that mirrors exploit? Do you say those buried grooves on foil are a record of a song that only plays when it hears itself? Yara wanted to call it a reflection-bound phase transition. Ava preferred echo, because she said the public would understand, and because she had been the one to pull tape when my hand reached without me. Oleg said names don't matter as much as rules. So I will end this with rules, because rules survive where stories do not. Rule 1. Anything that throws back your image can throw back more than your face. If you cannot make a surface matte, cover it. If you cannot cover it, dull it. If you cannot dull it, look away. Rule 2. Never stare into a reflection to check it. The echo uses checking as a handle. Use peripheral vision. Use touch. Trust your teammate more than your eyes. Rule 3. Limit optical paths in any system that can act without you. An AI that sees a reflection will learn it faster than you will. Blind the things that act for you when light lies. Rule 4. Reflections are in more places than you think. Water, ice, glass, polished metal, glossy paint, a tear, a lens, a pupil. Edge cases are not edge cases. Edges are exactly what it likes. Rule 5. If you hear a voice that sounds like you giving an instruction you didn't give, mute the speaker. The echo can learn timing as well as shape. Rule 6. If a reflection shows you something you want, do not bargain. The echo has no hands. It borrows yours. Rule 7. If you must destroy a reflective thing, do it without watching the strike. Close your eyes, turn your head, count to 3. When we hit atmosphere, the capsule's skin sang. Heat made the world outside a white wall, not a mirror. That felt like mercy. We came down in the Pacific under a hard gray sky with waves that did not reflect anything clearly. Rescue swimmers reached for us through water that broke into foam and hid faces. Men and women in matte suits pulled us into a boat with dull metal rails. And somebody put a rough blanket on my shoulders and a paper cup of something hot in my hands. The cup had a lid. It showed me nothing but steam. Quarantine was a box with soft walls and no glass. Doctors spoke to us through cloth masks and plastic that had been sanded to a blur. We told them what we could. We wrote the rest in pencil. We asked them to keep screens off in our rooms, and they agreed with the solemn expressions of people who have seen worse than they can tell you. I did not ask what had happened on Electo to make it send a canister with a polished ring to our door. Some answers are mirrors, too. I think about Petar in the service corridor, about the way the tape lifted on its own weight and formed a lens. I think about the chrome rod behind Yara that blinked when she didn't. I think about how the echo grew only when it had something to bounce against, and how hunger without mirrors is not enough. The world is full of mirrors. If it ever gets out, we will need to live like monks for a while. This notebook will be scanned by someone sometime. If they show it on a screen, I can't stop them. If you're reading it now with light shining off glass into your eye, I'm sorry, I warned you. If you're reading on paper, good. If you're reading on a matte e-ink that doesn't shine, better. If there's a sheen across anything you own while you read this, your window, your watch face, the water in your cup, turn it, tilt it, break it if you have to. Don't let it see itself. As for forward, it is out there still. debris drifting along a cold curve that never touches the earth, its wings torn, its cameras blind, its surfaces turned to frost. The echo, if it lived only in reflection, starved there. If it learned another way to live, we will find out eventually when some future telescope points at a dull piece of wreckage and sees itself blink. I prefer to think it died. I prefer to think we were its first and last meal. I prefer to think my daughter can drink from a cup in a kitchen with sunlight and see nothing in the curve but her own future, on time and in step. I prefer a world where mirrors are only mirrors. We do not always get the world we prefer, but we can choose how much to shine. If you must keep one line from me, keep this. Reflective surfaces are doors that don't look like doors. Close them, tape them, sand them, smash them if you must. Keep them closed until you're sure the other side has no hands. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.